Hi, I'm Sal, and I'd like to talk to you about trust and wisdom. It's about my father. I was born in 1945, okay, and my dad was so wonderful to me. He was a great man. My father used to have a horse and wagon in Brooklyn, New York, on the Avenue, McDonald Avenue, under the L, okay, where the subways run. And he used to work day and night selling fruits and vegetables, selling bananas, potatoes, apples, and celery, and all of that. And he made a living. When it rained, he just stood in the rain because he had to put food on the table for his family. And for me, my sister, she's 3 years older than me, and that's what he did. That's what he did. Okay, and he developed a lot of bad arthritis. He walked around. He couldn't move around. When you called him, he couldn't turn his neck. He hunched over. But he kept on doing that. He was in his 20s when he got that. And he just was a man of wisdom and trust. I remember when I went to the park with him, I was 8 years old. And I wanted to play catch with him. But I was home with him. I used to tie his shoes, and then I used to help him up the chair. This is what we did when we were kids, when we were growing up. Okay? Now going to the park, I had no idea that this man couldn't bend down. So I wanted to play ball with him because the other guys in the park were playing with my friends were playing with their mom and dad, and I wanted to play. So I actually forced him to get up, and he got up, and he was catching the ball and throwing his little Spalding ball back in those days, the little bouncy high balls and all that. And but he dropped the ball one day. That day he dropped it, and I went, and I looked at him, and he wasn't picking it up, and he looked very, very embarrassed. And I walked over to him, and he called me Butch a lot. He goes, Butch, I can't bend down. And I go, oh. So I just picked up the ball, gave it to him, and I says, he says, I'm sorry. I go, no, 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 trust me. I said, we'll do it. I went back there, threw the ball, and he caught it. But when he didn't catch it, he dropped it. I just ran over very naturally, picked it up, and gave it to him. Okay, and that's how we play ball. So, and he thanked me for that. He's like, I trusted him, he trusted me, and it was just that we just had a good time together. And I get very concerned today because we have all these iPads and iPods and cell phones. We have over 800 million people, on Facebook, which is great. But that shouldn't only be the only communication that we have. We should have one-on-one. I didn't have all these things back then. I had what my father gave me, my mother gave me. It was just what the family gave me. It's just learning about respect and trust and wisdom and openness and just connection. And sometimes we lack that today because too many of our children, and I did some research, and it's like 313 million orphans today, and people coming from broken homes, and they don't have that luxury of having two parents and one parent. And sometimes, we lose things because these kids could get so glued on that, and you say, I love you, and they go, whatever, and they don't have that communication. And I'm just, and all these things, all this technology is just great for me. I mean, the tools that we need, technology-wise, but it doesn't replace the connection on one-to-one. I remember I went to Penn Station. I was 15 years old, and I had to buy a book for my sister. She's 3 years older than me. And I went to Penn Station all by myself, from Long Island all the way to Penn Station. And then all of a sudden, coming back after I bought the book, I saw a lady, okay? And she was about maybe close to 40 in her 40s. And she had about 5 bags, okay, that she was carrying. And she was about 50 feet away from me. So I just go in the door, go in the train, and go home. But I didn't do that. I waited. My father always told me to respect your elders. And I waited. Okay, and I waited for her to walk. When she walked by, she just walked by, walked right through, didn't even give me a look, and she left. When I went home, again, I was 15 years old, and when I got home, I told my father, Daddy, I always call my father Daddy. I couldn't say Daddy when I was younger, and I just continued coming up Daddy. And I said, Daddy, I'm just a little bit confused because I told the whole story, and she didn't even say thank you. And he says to me, now this man had a 6th grade education, okay, because he had to leave, because he had he had a family to support, food to put on the table. He was a good provider. And he looked at me and says, Butch, why does that concern you? Why did you hold the door for the lady? Because it was a nice thing to do. How did you feel about it? He said. I said, I felt great. I felt really great that I was doing something nice for her. And then he goes to me, well, when she didn't say thank you, how did it make you feel? And I says, it made me feel bad. He says, well, what were you looking for? Well, were you looking for a thank you? Or were you looking for feeling good about yourself? And I says, no, feeling good about myself. That was the ultimate thing. He goes, then fine. If she would have gave you a thank you, that would have been a gift. But that's what you were looking for. Feel good about yourself. That's the main thing. And that's how I continued living my life after that. It's just a wonderful lesson that he taught me. But you can't learn that lesson from an iPad, an iPod, an iPhone. You can't. You can't. It's one-on-one. And that's what I'm concerned about today. That's what I'm really concerned. I remember a quote that I heard from Tiger Woods who once said, the thing that I really learned from my father was caring and sharing. And that says a lot, caring and sharing. Okay? And just we can go through life, not even connecting with our children, connecting with our parents, connecting with our loved ones, and that's a shame. There are people that go to their graves and people say, I never took the time to say I was sorry, I was so bitter. Why? Why live life like that? Why live life like that? And my father taught me so much. I want to share one more story. I was way back in the late 1960s. There was a woman that I was engaged to get married. She had a lot of health problems, and we were ready to get married, but she really had some really bad problems. And it was to the point where I didn't know what to do anymore. I didn't know if I should continue with it or whatever. It was really getting bad, okay? And it got to the point where I didn't know what to do. It was bad for both of us to get involved because she was have health problems. I was getting confused. I just came home from the army. I was 24 years old, and I remember talking to my mother about it. And I love my mother with all my heart and soul. I lost her 7 years ago. I just adore my mother. She used to talk to me, and when she got upset that I was maybe making a wrong decision, she always wanted to help me. She used to go, you can't do this, and you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, what's the matter with you, what are you thinking about? And she meant that with all the love and everything that she had inside of her, okay? But at that point in time, I still didn't know what to do. I was still very stressed out and very confused. Well, she got very upset. She just left the room, and then my dad started to walk towards me and asked me if I was okay. And I says to my dad, I says, Daddy, I really still don't know what to do. I'm very confused. I love her, but I don't know which way to turn. And he says, you want me to give you my advice? And I says, yes. And you know what he said to me? Nothing. He put his arms around me. He put his arms around me, and he cried. And he cried. I felt the connection. I felt the connection with my dad. He cried and he told me he loved me. He cried 5 minutes. We're holding each other and we're crying together. And you know what? I knew what to do. I knew what to do. And he didn't say a word of what to do. He just told me he loved me. And the connection I felt inside of me, it was like something spiritual. It was unbelievable. And I knew what to do. I couldn't continue getting married to that woman because it might be really bad for both of us. And it was just the right move to make. Okay, and later on I met somebody else, and I was married for 20 years. But I just have to say one thing to you, please. If there's anybody in your life that, is there and there's any problems or anything or any dissension or whatever, just say, hi, I love you. And it'll open up doors. It'll open up doors. That trust and the wisdom that I had from my dad. In my bedroom, there's a picture. There's a picture of me and my dad right here. and he's just a wonderful man. We talked about this picture for 10, 12 years before he died. I took it in the 1970s. There's a connection. There's a connection. And I'm telling you, we must do something to get our children more closer to us. The iPhones, the iPads, whatever, they serve a purpose for a certain point of time, but not for a connection, not for that one-on-one, because you have to feel a person's heart. You have to see a person's heart. You have to feel a person's heart. Please, just go out there and show that love and that trust and that caring and that wisdom. That wisdom. Bye now.